But once we assign that to a variable, we can then use this variable in any other part of our code, because we know that this variable is going to be the result of our function after passing in the parameters. So on line 5 here, we are not sure what the result might be. But because we have saved it into a variable, because we are passing it to a variable, because we are assigning it to a variable, we can make use of that variable in any other part of our code without breaking the code. So we might not be sure of what the result would be, but the program is sure, and we can just make use of it and go on with writing our code. So let's assume that this result now, we want to use it in another function that says calculate total, and this is going to be a multiplication of um let's say num3 and num4. And what the total we want to calculate here is basically the multiplication between num3 and num4. But I want my num3 to be the result I am getting here. So anytime I am calculating this result for my total, so let's say result total. So anytime I am calculating this total, I can simply pass in the result that I'm getting from my addition function. So when I pass in that result, and I can go ahead to pass in my num4. So this calculate total would calculate the multiplication between num3 and num4. So now, even though I change this variable to any other thing, let's say 6 for example, we know that the result here is going to be 11. But remember, this function might be more complex than this, such that we won't know what the result is. But that is why we are writing code, so our computer can calculate the result, however complex it is. Then when we get that result, we are storing it in a variable, and we can make use of that variable in other parts of our code depending on what the result is. So we don't need to worry about the result. We will just pass in the variable. So this says random is not defined because we don't have that anymore. So I'll change this to result total. And you can see here that my result is 110. So which, if you calculate, it will be 11 times 10. So this result, because it is a variable, it is subject to change depending on what the result of my function is. So that is why we need variables in JavaScript. So variables are like the backbone. They are the very basics of JavaScript, and you will be seeing them everywhere in your code. So, and like we already know also, variables can be of multiple data types. So your variable can be a number, a function, an object, an array, boolean. Yeah, so the accepted data types in JavaScript. So those are the fundamentals of variables. And also we can compare multiple variables, we can compare multiple values in JavaScript as well. So, and to do this, that would be done using your comparison operators. So we have multiple comparison operators in JavaScript, like the equal to, double equal to, greater than, less than, and so on. And the result of those comparison operators are boolean. So it is either like true or false. So it is either 3 is equal to 4 or not equal to. So we can use those operators to compare multiple values in JavaScript as well. So let's say we have a number here. So let's say we have num1 to be 5 and we have num2 to be 6. So if I do a console.log 5 double equal to, so which means equal to in JavaScript. So this means we are comparing if the numbers are equal. Sorry, I'm supposed to be comparing num1 and num2. So let's compare num1 and num2. We can see here that the result is boolean and it is false. So the comparison operators return either true or false, and we have multiple of them. So let's say my num2 here is string 5. The result here is going to be true because 5 is equal to 5. So in JavaScript, you can compare a number and a string. So it doesn't look at the data type for just double equal to, it just looks at the value. And it can see here that 5 is equal to 5. But if I change this to triple equal to, then this is going to check for equal value and equal type. So in this case, it is going to be returning false because number is not equal to string, so they are not of equal type. So we have other ones also, like not equal to. So this is just the opposite of equal to. And we have greater than or equal to, we have less than or equal to. So I'm sure we can guess what these comparison operators do. So moving on, because of these comparison operators, we can now compare things more than just let's say for the sake of comparison, for the sake of just returning true or false. So we can compare different values, then perform some action if my comparison is either true or false. So let's say, for example, we want to take an umbrella out if it is raining. So let's say here we have a variable that is holding the weather. So and let's say our weather here is going to be a string. So we have a variable that is holding the weather, and we want to check if my weather, sorry, let me just spell this correctly. So we want to check if my weather is raining. So if it is raining outside, we should take an umbrella. So in contrast to what we were doing before, where we were simply returning true or false, we want to perform some action if my comparison is either true or false. So now we are checking the weather to see if it is raining, and if it is raining, we want to take an umbrella. So we are performing some action based on our comparison, and this is what we call like control flow. So this is like a flow of comparisons which we perform some action based on if the comparison is either true or false. So let's say the weather is raining, we want to take an umbrella. So because the weather because it is raining outside, so we are definitely taking an umbrella. But what happens if it is not raining? So let's say the weather is sunny, or let's just say the weather is cool or something, because some people might still require an umbrella when it is sunny. So let's just say the weather is cool. We don't want to take an umbrella when the weather is cool. So we need something to help us handle that as well. So let's say when the weather is raining, we want to take an umbrella. So um else we are not taking an umbrella. So we'll just say not taking an umbrella. So this else keyword here is going to be triggered when the condition is false. And in this case, my weather is not going to be rainy. So the else keyword is going to be triggered because my condition would be false. And when I run this, you can see that we are not taking an umbrella because the weather is cool. So if anyone here has a question as we are going on, please, you can just speak up, because this session is supposed to give you the chance to fully understand like the concept of JavaScript. So you can ask any question if you have any as we go through the fundamentals. So we can see that now here that the else keyword is being triggered because my condition is false. But what if the okay, Mohammed, your hand is up. Do you have any question?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, this comparison methods, can we use break statement? Can break statement do the same thing?
No, break would be used when we are making use of for loops.
Okay,
For loops or while loops. That is when we will use breaks. When we are making use of loops. But when we are using the conditional statements, if, and else, we won't be making use of the break keyword or continue
okay,
keyword. Yeah.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Adeni Mayowa.
Okay, good morning.
Yeah.
I
Good.
only want to know when to use the functions, when to use arrow functions, when to use what's it called, the normal variables. You know, the variables has different ones, like you explained.
Yeah.
So I just want to know when to use them. So basically, that's my question.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we use variables when we are trying to keep track of values, like name, for example. If you want to keep someone's name, we can store that in a variable. So instead of typing the person's name out again, we will just be using a variable, just like we have here. So we are keeping the weather in a variable weather here, so we can keep track of that weather throughout our program. So the the case where we are going to be using a function is if we need to perform an action. So a function is a block of code that helps us perform actions. So just like we had before, so let me just create a new file here. So just like we had before, we can have a function here, an addition function. So this function is going to help us perform the operation of adding num1 and num2. So it is performing the action of addition, and this is where we would require a function. So functions can be as simple as this, and they can also be as complex as having hundreds of lines of code in one single function. So functions are one of the backbones of JavaScript because they help us perform actions, which is why we are writing code. So we write code to perform some actions, and functions help us with that. So let's say the action we want to perform is addition or subtraction or multiplication, or even as complex as maybe accessing a database or deleting a file from a server. So it is a JavaScript function that would help us do that. So that is why we need to understand the basics of function and know what functions do. So functions help us perform actions. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, okay, that's great. So um, let's move on. So like I was explaining, here we have two keywords that we've introduced here: the if and the else. So the if is going to be triggered when the condition is true. So if the condition is false, then the else is going to be triggered.